This is the SML Today, and you are listening to the SML Podcast Network.
All right, welcome to SML Today. I'm your host, Jay Smooth, aka DoinkFace, and we are going to get started with some Week 7 scores. Big matchup from Week 7. We had Colts and Prime taking on QP and the Ravens. That's a rematch of your AFC Conference Championship from last year, and Prime finally got his revenge on Q. I think Q had been 4-5-0 against Prime, and Prime takes this one pretty handily. 31-14 as Lamar Jackson throws 5 interceptions, which is, as we'll actually get into later in the show, very uncharacteristic from Lamar. JT ran for 130 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Tyrann Mathieu, the Colts' big offseason acquisition, added his 3rd interception of the year. This win bumps the Colts into first place in the AFC and in the chase for that vaunted number 1 seed. Next game we're going to look at is Saints 24 take down Rice and the Titans with only 17 points. Pushing Rice to 1-6 on the year, while Future moves to 3-4. Jason Kent, Rice's second-year quarterback, had 2 turnovers this time. Actually, not terrible compared to some of the rest of his season, but both went for touchdowns. And Future, despite only passing for 138 yards, managed to hold on to the ball, 0 turnovers, gets the win, and pretty much buries Rice's chance at the playoffs. Mike and the Dolphins take down DW and the WFT, handing DW his first loss on the year, actually, as he moves to 6-1. Mike is now 2-5 behind another rushing touchdown for rookie Trev McDaniel, his 3rd in 4 games, and 2 interceptions, including a pick 6 for Xavier Howard. Last game we're going to talk about before getting into some cycle-long stats for quarterbacks, we have the Texans and ZZ take down the Bucs. ZZ beat my Bucs 21-16 behind 300 yards passing and 3 touchdowns from Deshaun Watson. ZZ moves to 2-5, while I'm now sitting at 5-2. Brian Turner had his second worst game of the year. The worst, this one wasn't so much on the user error. I guess one of them was my fault. One of them was just Turner just missed a guy and missed a couple big third downs, and that's what's going to happen when your quarterback's 69 overall. Shutout meets. All right, now we're taking a look at, so my Madden, big upgrade over Daddy Leagues, lets you look at cycle long stats. So did a bit of a dive into quarterback stats. The big thing that stood out was Lamar Jackson's stats compared to every single player. Lamar is first among qualified quarterbacks in completion percentage, first in touchdowns, 4th in total yards, and 1st in passer rating. Qualified quarterbacks is anyone who's thrown at least 100 passes, so that does include rookies from this season, people starting for the first time, but they need to have played at least roughly 6-7 games. Lamar's sitting there with 77% completion percentage, thrown for over 10,000 yards in just 2.5 seasons, and has 110 touchdowns to only 50 interceptions, which is pretty astounding given he's got the top completion percentage and the top yards per attempt, which is usually it's one or the other. If you're chucking the ball deep, your completion percentage is going to be lower. Lamar is just defying all expectations en route to a league-leading, cycle-leading 130.8 passer rating. Rounding out the top 5 for passer rating, we got Lamar's 130.2. Brian Turner, actually, despite basically throwing the game against Easy and playing terrible against Dan, sits there at 127.1. I expect that to go down. That's a fairly small sample size of just 6-7 games. Super Bowl champion Teddy Bridgewater's 3rd at 126.9. Aaron Rodgers is 4th, 125.2. And Baker Mayfield, who actually was one of them, I was a little surprised to see him so high on the list, is 123.9. Baker also actually leads the entire cycle in total passing yards at 11,410, is 2nd in touchdowns at 108, and as was mentioned, is 5th in passer rating. Pretty impressive cycle for Baker, who I guess got off to a great start with Bomber and Prime, despite some early struggles, has clearly acclimated to him and is really slinging it with him now. Just looking at some other stats, Justin Herbert's attempted the most passes on the cycle with 969. Jordan Love came in 2nd with 964 attempts. Looks like snowboarding cost Faz yet another win. And now moving on to the not so fun stats. The shout out the Hebrew hurler Artie Zimmerman, who hopefully his career's over. Comes in at 56.4% completion percentage, a staggering 3% lower than the next qualified quarterback. Good for worst on the cycle. That's a tough percentage by Madden standards, where most guys are in the 60s, if not 70s. And we got 2 quarterbacks coming in with over 100 interceptions on the cycle already. So we had Lamar come in leading the league with 110 touchdowns. Meanwhile, we have Kermit the Frog himself, Pat Mahomes, and poor Coop coming in at 109 interceptions. He has been just as bad as QP has been good with Lamar. And Zach Wilson's the other quarterback with over 100 interceptions at 103. Next closest is 90, so those two have really, really stood out. Mahomes even comes in at 13% of his passes going to the other team, as he only has 815 attempts on the year. That about wraps it up. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.